Hello and welcome along to the West Yorkshire Football Show. Myself, Stephen Brown and Jason Booker, we're here to chat Leeds United's first summer signing. It is Harry Wilson, all but confirmed, subject to a medical, but it's all agreed, done and dusted. So we just want to give our reaction to the signing. If you're watching along live, get your comments in. What do you make of it? Like the video and get subscribed to the channel as well. Gav, straight off the bat, not a bad start to our summer recruitment share next. Harry Wilson, the man has landed. Obviously, Jay, 12 months ago, it was a very close deal indeed. We felt like, that was going to be done, and then Fulham kind of pulled the plug at the last few hours of the deal, and unfortunately it didn't happen. He went on to having a remarkable season, his best yet as a Premier League player. And Leeds United have now just acquired him for a free, which just feels like unbelievable business. It's felt like, obviously, it's been in the pipeline for a long time. It feels like Leeds United have really done their homework with this, really put their effort in and kind of kept tabs on him through this entire season. We've beaten out other clubs as well. It's interesting to gauge what fans are saying of other clubs. And I think there's a lot of copium going on with other fans of other clubs, Everton, Aston Villa fans. There's quite a lot of fans there scratching their head going, how have Leeds United managed to pull this one off? And yeah, I mean, Harry Wilson, it's done. It's our first summer signing. It's a freebie. What do you make of it, Jay?
Yeah, well, it's pleasing that the recruitment team identified him as a player a year ago before he had the peak season that he had in his career. It says a lot about Farker. It says a lot about the recruitment team that they kind of foresaw that. And Fulham got fortunate because he was kind of deemed surplus to requirements there. And they kept him, obviously, given what had happened. He then started the week after. And, it's not a stretch to say that he was the best player in the Premier League for a period of last season.
Yeah.
It's not a stretch at all. Like, there were a 2-month period where it were a Harry Wilson shot week in, week out. Scored some wonderful goals, free kick specialists, as we know. We're not a stranger to Harry Wilson, are we? I sent you the picture earlier of Jayden Bogle and Harry Wilson celebrating Derby in the Spygate season. They were part of the team that came to Ellen Road and did what they did under Lampard. So, and Harry Wilson before that at Cardiff, he's a top player, and he's evolved as his career's gone on. He's probably a bit of a late bloomer, but because he's not rapid in pace anyway, that doesn't matter. So it's not like we're losing out now because he's going to start slowing down. Like, that's not his game anyway.
No.
And so, yeah, I think it's a top sign, and I agree with you. It's funny because I did a video yesterday before the David Ornstein news, kind of putting out that this were a done deal, kind of not clickbaity, but a little bit clickbaity in that, the noises were all saying this is a done deal. And the reaction that I got was, you've not got a chance, you're dreaming, he's going here, he's going there, he's signing a new contract at Fulham, blah, 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 blah. It always felt like this were going to get done for me. There's a few things, the Welsh lads. I think the fact that we were in for him a year ago will matter. I think Harry Wilson, we know Harry Wilson wanted the deal a year ago, and then the circumstances around some of the other clubs, is he going to play? I think he's going to be an out-and-out mainstay in this side for 2 or 3 seasons. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it's a great signing. And on a free. It's just bliss, isn't it?
Yeah. So, well, this is it. You can give him a big old signing on fee. It doesn't really matter. It's not going to be as much as a transfer fee for a player like that. So you're absolutely winning. Mark, welcome along, mate. Thanks. Glad you could join us on a live. Gav, 11 goals, 7 assists. His delivery can only help. DCL. Yeah, we'll get into what type of player Wilson is. But yeah, I just find it remarkable because I think you're absolutely bang on. I think it says a lot about the recruitment team and Farker identifying that this player was almost like ready to explode last season. He was ready to deliver something special. And it was absolutely a position that we were crying out for and we wanted absolutely last year. We couldn't quite do it. It's a position we've identified in the summer as a big weak point in the team, if you can call it a weak point. That right wing kind of, set piece taker can kind of play in that position. Absolutely vital. I'm still scratching my head. I suppose you've answered it a little bit there by saying maybe, if he did go to a European team or, a team that's in Europe, maybe he wouldn't see as much football. But it's still remarkable that we've kind of picked everyone out. And, there's a lot in our favour, obviously, with the Welsh contingent. It feels like he isn't going to take long to settle. It feels like it's almost plug in and play. He's just going to be ready to go. But it's still, especially like Villa, we're very keen. And you're thinking, wow, for Leeds to actually kind of power through and get that deal done. I mean, it speaks to the whole recruitment process.
Yeah, especially because it's a free. Because the truth is, like, at times teams come in and are prepared to pay more for the player than other teams, and that's how you steal a match. But in this, there isn't that. There's wages, sure, and apparently with Villa, that's making part of the issue because Villa have got less to spend on that kind of player. I don't know how true that is. I think there's a lot that goes with this. People forget that there's a person behind the footballer, and Harry Wilson was wanted when Fulham didn't want him a year ago, and they kind of got messed around. No doubt we will have kept on speaking to him and his people during that period of time. So I think that'll matter. I think he understands his role within this team. We don't have. I think I'm right in saying I'm not counting Jack Harrison in this. We don't have a left-footed winger.
No,
the club.
No.
So straight away, Harry Wilson knows how integral he is. Leeds are a big club as well. Like we can't sell ourselves short. I think we need to remember where we are in terms of the pecking order. Sure, but we are still a big club. We're a bigger club than Fulham. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, maybe it's not as surprising. And like I said, the Welsh lads definitely make a difference. You've got a situation there where you've got his international captain and Leeds United's captain in Ethan Ampadu. You've got, sorry, I'm just seeing the game in my corner of my eye. You've got Ethan Ampadu, you've got Joe Rodon, you've got Carl Darlow, Dan James, I think. We'll maybe talk about that situation a little bit again because I do think it's interesting. But it matters, especially I think Joe Rodon and Ethan Ampadu. The likelihood is the three of them have probably knocked about with each other for years. I know Ethan's a few years younger than Harry, but they'll have known each other since they were teenagers. Harry Wilson will likely been in under 18s Welsh team, while Ethan were in under 15s Welsh team. Football's a very close-knit network. So, and, Ethan mentioned him in interviews, didn't he, only a couple of weeks ago, basically saying, we've been in his ear, but I'm sure other people I'm willing to bet Ethan Ampadu probably knew 3 weeks ago. So, yeah. I'm buzzing with it because I think it's a great signing.
Yeah, I'm absolutely chuffed. And I think it's funny. I think it's almost like seeing other fans' reaction as well from other clubs, and it is a little bit. I think they're sleeping on Leeds a little bit, and the size of Leeds. I think what they don't realise is if things fall into place and we kind of develop, and you almost, a couple of results here and there, it might have been us that were nicking a European place. There's not a great load that we have to do to massively change that. If we get it right, we can shoot up, we can just go like that. And I think it's interesting because I was watching an Everton fan video today, and they're getting a bit frustrated because just nothing is happening, and their new owners don't communicate. The guy who owns the club doesn't even come out, hasn't even given like a 10-minute statement about what their plans are or anything. And it feels like with Leeds, it's like the opposite. It's like the stadium stuff, the Parag interviews that were happening. Robbie Evans the other night, he's done like a fan forum type thing. And it all feels like we're so ambitious and just ready to kind of set fire to this, but remaining cautious, being clever. Obviously, we've got financial restrictions to work around. And I mean, I'm just staggered that we've been able to get in there and get a player of this caliber for free without a transfer. When I mean, surely there would be at least 10 to 15 clubs in the Premier League that would have inquired, would have been working on this. And Leeds United, who have only just come up from the Championship a year ago, have been able to get it done. I mean, it's phenomenal.
It's a real coup. But people will start, they'll start reinventing history. Yeah. A year ago, if we'd have been arguing that this ain't a massive signing, I could get on board with that. Because I remember when we were discussing it, I said he improved us. but it didn't feel like a scintillating signing. It wouldn't be one that would be kind of like, well, we actually both said, and I think the most of the group said, it won't be one that we'll look back on regretting not getting, and that was actually completely incorrect. You talk about the difference between us and them. I think we finished 5 points behind Fulham. It's Harry Wilson.
Yeah,
there's probably a 10-point swing. Them 5 worse off, and us 5 more off on top with a player like Harry Wilson inside. There's an argument to say that we probably would have finished in the top 10 with Harry Wilson in this side. When you consider the fact that we made do with Dan James and a half-fit Dan James at that, no left-footed winger at all. Brendan Aronson, who I do like quite often, filling a role outside there, playing alongside Dominic Calvert-Lewin at times. I just think I think now, after the year that he's had, I think it's an absolute massive signing. Fulham's player of the year this year, and we're just going to go him for free.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it says everything, doesn't it? In terms of what we're getting with Harry Wilson, obviously we know last year we saw, the goal of the season, the fantastic assist, striking the ball from left, right and centre, unbelievable. How do you feel he'll fit into kind of the dynamic of this Leeds United side? Because he's not obviously a pace merchant, but it's all about that quality and that ball striking. And it feels to me like he's that exact bit of inventiveness, the one that can pull off something ridiculous. The outside of the boot goal, for example, and where the goal against Tottenham, where he kind of just decides to hit it and it goes in from miles outside the box. It feels like that's what he's going to give us. If he can replicate what he's done this season, almost, he might not have a season as kind of, as that, but if he can get, 85% of it, 90% of it, that's going to be exactly what we've been crying out for.
Yeah, 100%. We said often last season, didn't we, the team missed creativity. It was the big problem of the season, wasn't it? If Noah Okafor didn't play, we huffed and puffed.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair kind of assessment of the team. There's loads to like in the team. That doesn't mean that I don't like the team. It doesn't mean that we couldn't win games, and we were able to create more as the season went on. We saw the likes of Jada Bogle, James Justin, Gabby, Anton Stark all contributing in different ways. But when Noah Okafor wasn't in the side, the creativity, the individual brilliance was missing. Yeah. And Harry Wilson gives us that. It gives us more flavour, more spice, more, as Henri would say, va-va-voom, right? Like, he gave us that little bit, it will give us that little bit of extra. And above all else, just quality in general. Outside of the odd player here or there, where is the real quality within our squad? It's reserved for the likes of, and I'm talking certainly in the final third here, Anton Stark, Noah Okafor. That's really it. Would a class... Dominic Calvert-Lewin's got so many great attributes, but is he quality? The quality that unpicks and unlocks games when you need it. It's different, isn't it? So, yeah, I just think it's a great signing, mate. It's a really, really top signing.
Yeah, bringing Michael's point here, if he turns out as good as last season's free signings, DCL and Metcher, then all good. Downside, given Wilson age 29, no big selling on fee, if any. I personally just not bothered at all, really, about thinking about what kind of sell on are we going to get. It's a free at 29. It's someone who's at peak. It's funny, isn't it, Jason, how certain players hit peaks at different periods. Do you think he can replicate last season? Do you think it's one of them things where it's almost like the perfect blend mentally? He's kind of peaking, physically he's peak, and it's like just that perfect timing. Do you think Leeds can kind of get a similar Wilson as to what was there last season, rather?
I don't see why not. That's going to be on Daniel Farker. It's going to be on his role within the squad, and there's going to be plenty that comes with that. We're going to have to play around him and make sure that we get him into the game in the same way that Fulham were able to get him into games. But with regards to the transfer fee specifically, we're signing him for free, so it doesn't matter. Because resale value, really, it's important. Of course, it's important. But when you've signed them for free, you're already onto a win because you've not had to pay. You know, the season that Harry Wilson's just had, we would have signed him for 10 million a year ago by the sounds of it. That's what it was. I think it were loan, but the fee would have been around 10 million because he's got a year left on his deal. He won't sign a new contract, and then what had ever happened after that. The truth is, after the season that he's had, if he was under contract, you'd be talking about 25, 30 million quid, even at 29-year-old, because of what he gives you there and then. You know, his experience matters as well, and everything. So, yeah, I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered at all. He, again, kind of falls into that category of hopefully we outgrow him, or the version of him that will be at 33 in 3-4 years' time, and he becomes a bit part squad player that then becomes a Leeds almost like hero. You know, like he retires a Leeds player, and we think of him so fondly from the years that he gave us. Like, not everything has to end in a transfer. You know, like I don't know if football's changed, but you know, when we signed Lucas Radebe, we didn't care about the fact that there were no transfer fee at the end of that career. You know what I mean? Like, so I think he can fall into that category of player. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, if we don't sell him this summer, which we won't, or next summer, he'll fall into the same category.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I think the age thing as well. I mean, there's countless examples of us signing players, you know, getting on in inverted commas. I mean, can go back Gordon Strachan. We signed Gordon Strachan when he was about, I think, 31 or 32, and he came in and he was unreal. You know, Pablo Hernandez. Look at Pablo. Pablo joined us when he was 31. You know, it's like, you know, if they've got it up here, and if their game doesn't solely rely on physicality, then, you know, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, the way players are conditioned these days, I think it's absolutely fine. So
we're seeing that at this World Cup, aren't we? We spoke about it in the group a little bit. Yeah. You know, the days of, it is ridiculous. I mean, the days of footballers retiring at 32, 33 are gone, really. So gone. Players are capable of going on and on and on and don't get me wrong, it's the elite mindset players that do. We're talking Ronaldo, Messi, and a couple of others, but it's still the footballing careers have been elongated massively. So, you know, if Harry Wilson looks after himself, I'm sure that we're still going to get another good 4, 5, 6 years out of Harry.
Yeah,
for free.
Absolutely. Yeah, for free. Yeah, exactly. Big question then, Jay. Who comes out? Who loses game time on the back of this now? If it's a similar kind of setup to last season, I guess you'd be looking at Brendan Aronson. Interesting situation there. His contract's expiring as well, in terms of he's got a year left on his deal. What do you make of that kind of situation? Would you be looking for potentially any more reinforcements in that side of the pitch as well?
It's a good question. It's a good question in terms of extra signings. I mean, I think, how does Dan James get game time now? Because I also think we're going to sign someone else as well. I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think it'll just be Harry Wilson and then that's what we'll go with. I do feel that Willie Gnonto might leave, though. I think it's very fluid, this situation, because, you know, there's so many different parts to it, isn't there? There's, you know, Dan James signing a new contract last year, Brendan Aronson in being in the last year of his contract and the position that puts us in. Willie Gnonto's age, but then how much game time is that? It all becomes tricky. Noah Okafor, you know, if he were getting 90 minutes week in, week out, then it won't be a problem. But the fact is he can only really do 60 minutes. You know, how's that going to kind of transcend? So I think it's a real open situation for debate. I think we'll sign another winger that can play across the two positions, maybe even one that can play up front as well. I think we'll sign another striker. I think that's an absolute given. I think Metcher will have another season at the club, but it'll be bit part. And I think he'll be okay with that. But then I imagine that Metcher will leave on a free in a year's time. And I think 2 years of what he's given us that'll be fine as well. You know? So, yeah, it's a real interesting one. What's your take on it? Because I don't think there's any right or wrong, by the way.
For me, Gnonto, I think it's the time is probably up there. I think Dan James, I would sell tomorrow. To be completely honest, I just don't see the kind of impact at Premier League level Dan James is going to have, and I think, you know, the fitness issues last season, etc. Noah Okafor is not physically reliable enough. we can't have a situation. I mean, you saw it at the end of the season when he was there, brilliant. He gets us the win against Man United and gets us over the line with his impact, but then he's out for those last few games and suddenly we diminish, our attacking. You just look at the scores, you look at the, all the stats and everything, we diminish when he's not there. So I personally would love to. I think he's a great shout in terms of someone that can play both sides well and comfortably, and maybe even up front as well. I think that'd be, if you could get that profile in, absolutely be on board with that. I definitely want to see someone come in where, like you mentioned before, if Okafor's injured, if Okafor's knackered, you've got someone there capable who you can rely on, who can do that job. And on the other side, I'd like something else there. Bit greedy maybe, but I think this is the attacking quality that we were talking about last summer that Farke, kind of wanted a bit more impact from. And I think this season, I'm hoping is, we can do it, because it's probably, our weakest area of the pitch. And I'm sure that's where the funds are going to go to. The problem is the pipeline's a bit stuck at the minute. We've got all these players there. Like you say, we've got so many question marks over so many players in these positions. Nipper has said here, why are we selling Ramazani if we want pace? I mean, that's the thing, you've got Ramazani out on loan, you've got Harrison out on loan, you've got these players in the pipeline that, is it a guarantee we're going to be able to sell them? And what do you keep stockpiling players? It's a real difficult one. Peru still there. I mean, it's going to be a fascinating one, but I think I would love to see us be able to move the majority of those players I mentioned on and really get that quality nailed down, get the quality in that's going to just uplift us. But it's really, I mean, it must be such a kind of, I don't envy them trying to do that, because it must be so hard, because you've got an overinflated market, where it's so skewered, transporting. So like Peru, for example, what realistically is a team going to be able to pay for him? In the same breath, you're looking at someone like him to get you a bit of money in, so you can do stuff. But realistically, how much a championship team's going to be able to pay for a Peru?
Yeah,
it's a real difficult one. Dan James as well. I mean, he's got a nice long contract here. I don't think he'll be that motivated to leave. I don't think Dan James will be that motivated to go. But I mean, and I hate saying it, because he was absolutely fantastic in the championship, and he seems like a great lad, all the rest of it. But it's just when you're just watching a player, you just think you are never going to crack it at this level, because you've had countless opportunities. It just doesn't look like you're going to do it. But I don't know. I don't know how you move some of these players on. I don't know how that's going to work. It is a tricky one.
It's an interesting one. I think there's some great comments. I don't agree with all of them. But I think there's some really, really great comments. I think we have got a situation where we've got too many players that are either A, not good enough, or B, Farke doesn't want. Now, this doesn't need to be something that Farke's doing wrong. It doesn't need to be a bashing of Farke, because all managers have players that they don't want.
Yeah,
it's just that's just the way that the land of the line in football, right? This Ramazani debate, you just have a certain cohort of fans that are adamant that he's good enough, and we haven't seen that. No. We've seen the odd flash in the championship, and for the most part, it was displaced by a far better player in Manor Solomon. That's just the truth. Willing Onto, I think, has not shown enough to say that he's going to continue to develop. Now, he could, but I don't think it's because Daniel Farke doesn't like him. I think Daniel Farke's given him plenty of game time. And in each occasion where he's got that game time, he's ended up being ousted by somebody that's performed better. Manor Solomon and Dan James in particular, because he's more, I think Nonto under Farke is more seen as the right side rather than the left. Even though I disagree with that, I think that's how Farke sees him. But he's been ousted then by Manor Solomon as well. Before that, Crescenzio, some of them. Bear in mind, when we went down, I'd argue that most people would have argued that Nonto would have seen more game time than Somerville. If you think about the Premier League time, Nonto's reputation was higher. Yeah, it was higher. But Somerville took his chance on that left wing and made it his own. So I've just seen Nipper's comment there. They have been given chances. They've been given loads of chances. You know, for me, it's just not comparable. Like, nobody can complain with the fact that Manor Solomon got that game time. Ramazan is, you know, he's gone to Valencia. Valencia were in the bottom three when he went there. It took him ages to get going. He was spent a lot of time out injured. He flirted with a purple patch of decent-ish form towards the back end of the season. But there's not an outcry of demand for Elijah Ramazani.
No.
There's not. And we're miles ahead of Valencia. You know, the standard at the bottom of La Liga is nowhere near as competitive as the standard at the bottom of the Premier League. So I'm not saying that Elijah Ramazani is not a bad player. He's, you know, he's not a bad player. But is he going to realistically compete with Noah Okafor? He's not. And Noah Okafor's got loads of deficiencies as well, Brownie. So, like, I think the drop off from Noah Okafor to the next man can't be as big as what it's been this season. They've done as well as they could to fill in for him when he's not there, but that quality gap can't be as big as that.
No. Bringing in some comments then, Michael. Anybody who falls out with Farke like Largy means that ship has sailed like Creswell. There's no way back in. Let's have a look. Nipper, let's face it, if you are tall, you're not getting in.
Just on the Michael comment.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, Willie Gnonto handed in a transfer request, refused to play for Leeds United, and then was incorporated back into the squad. Again, this notion that Farke will just be like, no, it's a manager's got to be firm enough, as Simon Jordan would say, to stand on the courages of his convictions, and that's what this is. Largy doesn't give him what he demands from a player that plays in his team, and that's that. Charlie Cresswell crashed into a police car at the playoff semi-final. People ignore that and forget that. But in the build-up to the Norwich game, I think it was, the season that we missed out to Southampton, Charlie Cresswell ended up missing out on the squad because he crashed his car. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, these things just get... Richard Cresswell, his dad, were kicking and screaming about him not playing. He didn't deserve to play at the time. So there just has to be given context to these situations. Farke doesn't get everything right, but most of his decisions are pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on with the comments.
No, it's fine. CB, Ramazani is not as good as he thinks he is. He seems to have a big-time Charlie attitude, which Farke doesn't like. I think as well, I think the club are incredibly careful about the types of personalities they're bringing in and the blend. And I would argue what saw us safe last season, way more than individual quality, is a sense of big characters off the pitch, positive characters willing to scrap, dig deep, and get over the line and get it done. And that is massive. I mean, that I think last season has kind of not changed my kind of attitude towards it a bit, but I think it's kind of shone a spotlight on how important that stuff is. Like, it's not all about the other side of it. Of course, you want to, have a good technical level and everything like that. But like CB says, any kind of big time Charlie attitude issue, we don't want that. We've seen that before and it doesn't work. So I think the club are so careful with that. And you're going to get signings wrong occasionally, aren't you? And if you sign someone and they have a bit of an attitude, move them on. But, I mean, Somerville was notoriously, there were always rumours about how difficult he was. Well, he played all the time for Farke, but he delivered. But, I thought Farke managed him really well. You could argue it was kind of Farke that set, the touch paper light to his career, really. I know he'd been decent in the relegation season, but that championship season, I think Farke, because he was still massively unproven at that point. It wasn't like Somerville, it wasn't like Somerville now, and I think a lot of credit has to go to Farke to that as well. But yeah, I think you've got to be so careful with that stuff, Joe. You've got to get the players in with the right mentality. And
100%.
To tie it back round to Harry Wilson, someone 29, been up and down the leagues, seems like another really good lad, and I would back it to work. I mean, if you had to bet on it now, Jay, will the Harry Wilson signing work out for you?
I think so. I mean, the recruitment policy of this club since the 49ers have taken over has been almost flawless. You know, we've said this so many times on this show. There's been so few signings that haven't worked. If you take out the loans, I'd argue nearly all of them have worked. And I mean, even when I include the loans, you know, for every Jed Spence, you have a Manor Solomon. For every Connor Roberts, we have a Joe Rothwell. You know what I mean? So that it does work. Because it always makes me laugh when people say, "Oh, he hates loans." What, Jed Spence? You know what I mean? Like, okay, fine, cool. But most of the signings work. You know, even the bit part ones, the Sam Byrams. You know, you mention, you know, off the field stuff. Alex Cairns. You know, like these players matter, and that's why I'd be so careful and conscious of just getting rid of Brendan Aronson because he loses the ball every now and again. Yeah, it's frustrating. Creativity-wise, he can be really annoying. But he makes up part of what's been such a strong squad. And once we get somebody that is prepared to press and give the output and is the right character and the right attitude as him, and also then better creativity-wise, fine, no problem, replace him. But the truth is that won't just come easily. I saw a comment earlier about sell Brendan Aronson for 10 million. It's not just as easy as that. He's in his last year of his deal. So the likelihood is that we won't be able to fetch 10 million. And how do you even replace somebody that gives the output of Brendan for 10 million? You just don't. I mean, not often anyway. I mean, our recruitment is good. So, you know, we have shown being capable of putting the pennies around wisely. But it's not as easy as that. And you don't want to have too much. You know, there is going to be some change in this squad this summer. You've got to be careful where you pick and choose that. I know we said we were going to do half an hour. We could probably go on for an hour, me and you. You know, it's like, but that's where then the conversation about Gabby Goodmanson comes in. You know, if we're able to fleece Chelsea for 40, 50 million, you kind of maybe got to make a call on a player that you paid 10 million for a year ago, because we do have to get better at selling players at the right time. We do. It's a problem of ours. So...
Yeah, it is, and that's when you can kind of get stuck in them situations. If a player declines, no value. You know, I get it. You've got to kind of strike while the iron's hot. If someone puts the money on the table, you've got to kind of weigh it up. You know, as long as you can kind of replace and, you know, do what the Brightons and the Bournemouths and the Brentfords have done, where you're losing quality players, but you're able to then restock. You've got a list. You get the next one who's able to deliver it. In terms of other transfers, and I mean, obviously the big three, it's one is done, Harry Wilson. I saw someone mention about Shea Charles as well. That one's bubbling. Apparently Leeds have had a £20 million bid rejected by Southampton, but there's a feeling that Leeds are going to try and get this one done. Shea Charles, obviously, Jay, we mentioned him on our show briefly last week, but it feels like we are pushing forward with this one. I mean, to get that done as well, I just feel like that would add so much quality.
Yeah, I think it'll get done. He's in the last year of his deal as well. You know, that is our target. And it's smart, actually. I'm surprised that we don't see more of it, really. Yeah. But yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, they're talking 30 million. I think that's steep. I think it's really steep.
I get a bit, 30 million.
Yeah, I think in and around 20 million feels... comfortable, feels fair for a player that's got potential resale value of 40, 50, 60 million, given his age, his pedigree, etc. But I don't. There's got to be a point where it's like any more is too much.
Yeah.
But I do think it'll get done. I think it'll get done. Clearly, Farke likes him. Clearly, the club like him. He apparently wants the deal as well from the noises that are coming out from his side. So I think once the player wants it, it gets done, and it does give us a serious improvement, and the profile of it's nice.
Yeah, Gav going through at 25 million allegedly. Yeah, we'll wait and see for that. And Wilson and Shea for 25 million bargains. Yeah, well,
that's when you start to look at it, innit? Because it does matter.
Yeah.
You know, so.
CV, Jay, just being nosy, what's the shirt you're wearing? You've told me before. I've seen this before.
Tigres in Mexico. It was a mystery football shirt. I've had it a while, but it's one of them that, for some reason, like Mexico, they just stick sponsors everywhere. Yeah. So like the whole shirt is just covered in sponsors. But it's quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a nice one. Yeah, it's a nice one. Yeah, absolutely.
Tigres.
The other one, obviously, Julian Brandt, another freebie, but strong competition for this one. It feels like that's going to be a little bit of a harder one to crack. Exciting if we can, make it happen. I think he's 29 or 30 as well, so he fits that profile again, and someone you'd hope could come in and have an instant impact. But again, this free market situation, like you say, identifying players with just a year remaining, it feels like a really smart way to do business.
I mean, I think Julian Brandt would be an unbelievable signing. It'd be a real statement piece, real quality, elevation. You talk about the Brendan Aronson conundrum as a number 10. Julian Brandt is levels above Brendan Aronson.
Yeah.
The experience that he's got. And I love Brendan, but he is what he is. And he has got room for growth as well. But still, the difference in quality would be massive. I don't think that one gets done, though. I just think there's too much competition. Apparently, his missus has a place in Spain. So I don't know if she's Spanish or what, but she apparently has got a place in Spain. When you're in competition with Atletico Madrid and you've played nearly every game season after season for a club like Dortmund, you're going to back yourself that you can make 30 appearances for Atletico Madrid, aren't you? And even if you don't, then you're loving life in Spain on a 3 or 4 year deal, right? Like it's, we sometimes just think, Premier League's the holy grail, like you'll pick us, but that's a massive signing. I think we can be competitive against Roma and are competitive against them lot in Turkey. From what I'm hearing, they're the other two clubs as well as us that are involved, and we've shown that we can compete with Villa, Newcastle. In the conversation with Harry Wilson, Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well last season. So, but yeah, I think we'll probably end up missing out on that one to Atletico Madrid. But if that one happens, we'll be on, and I'll be like super gassed. Super gassed.
That will be something else, won't it? Well, I was going to say, I mean, does it feel to you that this year the transfer, even just the transfer rumours, have just gone up that level? I mean, when it broke with Julian Brandt, I was like, what?
Yeah. But it snowballs that as well, though, doesn't it? Because players start to see the recruitment that you're making, and then potential targets that weren't interested then become interested. I can't wait to see what happens with the noise of a striker, because that's going to be super, super exciting. You mentioned earlier as well, though, about like names. It does start to become real imperative that we start moving on the likes of Jack Harrison, Joe Perreault. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not even thinking that far down the pecking order. Yeah, get the situation sorted out with Pascal Struijk. Yeah, understand what's going to be happening. Is there a conversation that Tanaka carries on having a good World Cup for Japan, and you maybe look to sell on Ao Tanaka at the right time? Ao Tanaka, kind of in your head, you think he's 23, 24, 25. He's not. He's a little bit older than that, so there might come a conversation with him, especially with game time. It's going to be tricky. It's going to be really tricky, but I think it's going to be such a busy summer window for Leeds.
Yeah, well, Robbie Evans, he was saying that basically the window's split into two halves. So we're trying to get as non-World Cup player involved stuff done now. So it could be, it could be a busy couple of weeks, in fact. It could be really, it's not going to be dead, I don't think, completely, just whilst the World Cup's going on. And then after the World Cup, there'll be a load of other stuff going on. So it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see what happens next. Before we sign off then, Jay, any your kind of final thoughts on Harry Wilson, the first Leeds United summer signing?
I mean, you couldn't get any better in terms of the value for money. We've seen what we're capable of doing in that market already last season with Calvert-Lewin, Mecha. We've been really resourceful. As Gav put it earlier, Wilson and potentially Shea for 25 million starts to, when you package it like that, it feels even better. You know what I mean? You're prepared to maybe pay a little bit extra for Shea Charles than you would have done because you've got Harry Wilson and one of your winger positions sorted for free. So, and then just the player himself, I think technically he steps us up a huge level in comparison to the names that we've mentioned. Dan James, certainly, Willing on tour, Lajim Ramazani, he's levels above both of them. It gives us another option as well, because I think on the right-hand side of the pitch we've struggled. Dan James was out last season, and thank God which is mental to say. Thank God we had Brendan Aronson, because without him, we'd have been in trouble. We would have been in trouble for a part. January, February time last season, he was massive. So we wanted him last year for a reason. I think he fits the culture of the club. I think he gets the size of Leeds United. The Welsh contingent. It's a great signing, mate. It's a great signing, and we stole a march on, competition within our own division in the likes of Aston Villa and Everton. So yeah, it's just 10 out of 10 signing, mate. It can't not be a 10 out of 10 signing. You're talking about somebody that got Player of the Season at a team that finished 5 points ahead of us last season in the Premier League. So it's a great signing.
Rutter, any thoughts? Yeah, but Gavin's pouring water on that one. Rutter ain't happening. Yeah, I can't see any deal potentially going on there.
I think if he, I don't think he'll leave Brighton, if I'm honest. No. But if he does, it'll be for around 40 million quid, and I just don't see Leeds being in that market. No. Interesting one here from Michael.
Your favourite team to mention, Sunderland there, Jay, again. My favourite is that what Sunderland did when Leeds targeted players, they came in and offered more money for the same player. I hope that doesn't happen to Leeds again.
I think at the end of the day, like, you have your budgets, right? Sunderland had a PSR wiggle room that we didn't because of the landscape of our relegations from the Premier League and their situations being in League One. They had more work to do as well, you would argue. I think there's going to be situations where you miss out on a player, but sometimes you get a player. I know, Calvert-Lewin had interest from Fenerbahce. He had interest from Sunderland. Sunderland were the other Premier League club, and he picked us. So there were money put into Dominic Calvert-Lewin from Leeds United that Sunderland weren't prepared to. If you read the reports with regards to Harry Wilson, we've offered them more money than Aston Villa.
Yeah.
So, it swings in roundabouts. It swings in roundabouts. Nipper's just put there that they had 180 million. We spent 100. And we had very little resale value on anybody as well. That's another thing that people just skirt over. They sold Joe Bellingham to Dortmund for 30 million quid right off the bat. We didn't make any big sales.
No, there was hardly anything, was
Sam Greenwood, who's, by the way, going to Bristol City.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. Scoobs.
Yeah.
Looking up with Scoobs again.
Yeah, we didn't have any.
So. Do you know when all these links? I don't know about you, but I had this kind of realization when it came through. I was like, this is Leeds United of the modern day. Now I'm like, I'm almost still not used to us being able to do this kind of thing. Right, it still feels completely surreal. I'm still kind of used to like wheeling and dealing in the Championship and that kind of thing. It's like, oh, now you're signing the guy that scored goal of the season last year, and like you say, at times was the best player in the Premier League, and we're linked with a player that's been a stalwart for Dortmund for so many years, and this up and coming exciting talent at Southampton came through at Man City. I mean, it's just like, what is going on, Jay? This is like, when's is something bad going to happen? Because I'm like, this is just like, it's almost too good to be true. I'm like, I'm loving it, but I'm almost like, I can't believe it almost. It's just surreal when you think of where we were 10 years ago and the type of players we're linked with and the type of situation we're having to deal with. I mean, it's night and day.
No, you're spot on. And even when we came back to the Premier League, there was still an air of that feeling around it because Dad and Otto we didn't. Now, don't get me wrong, we signed some nice players. Rafinha, as an example, was the absolute creme de la creme of what we could have signed. But we also signed a lot of shit. Yeah. When you look at some of the dross that came through the door as well. And it weren't just the quality of the players that we signed sometimes. It was how haphazard it was, how out of sync with the recruitment structure it was. Matt Rocker, as an example, I think is a great example of this. Matt Rocker's a bloody good footballer. And for the right team, it'd have been a great signing. But it wasn't the right signing for Leeds United. And we shoehorned him in just because it were a bit sexy. You know what I mean? And we had so many of them. Weston McKennie at the time was another great example. Weston McKennie is clearly a great player. But at that time, he wasn't the right signing for Leeds United, but we did it anyway. Jorginho Rutter was another one in that January. And I can go on and on and on. The recruitment structure was a big problem back then, even though it was sexier than it had been a few years previously in the Championship. Now it feels smart, it feels educated, it feels thought out, it feels like there's a plan behind it. And we're clearly going to some of these players with the project and they like it. Harry Wilson will have had, as you said earlier, maybe 10 to 15 Premier League teams interested in him in one shape or another. You're telling me that Sunderland wouldn't have taken Harry Wilson on a free? They absolutely would have done, but it would have been interesting going in there. So, yeah, the club's come on a long way, mate. A hell of a long way.
We could be doing a few of these videos over the summer, Jay.
Hope so, mate. Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it?
Maybe even some outgoings as well. We never know. We'll wait and see how that's going to be. There's like no links, is there? There's like absolutely nothing and no rumours or anything. I'm like, can someone who goes out on loan just perform? That'd be really nice if they could perform and be actually signed by a club.
Very quickly before we go, I think that there's some areas of real concern with them because of the wages that we will have to keep and the contract situation. Joel Perreault especially. Like, Joel Perreault should really be worth 15 to 20 million quid for a top-end championship team or a top Eredivisie team, but he's got a year left on his deal. Again, we're in this kind of situation. Brendan Aronson, same kettle of fish. Jack Harrison, he's still got 2 years left on 70 grand a week. Why is he going to go anywhere? Dan James has not done anything to help his value. So what do you do with him? You kind of have to look to move him on, but who's going to take him on that kind of deal? And like, it's so tricky. I could see Dan James at Ipswich, but then you're going to be paying probably half his wage.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you, very quickly before we go, would you like offer a mutual termination with Jack Harrison? Just to be like, look, we'll give you a bit of a payoff. It won't be a full contract for 2 years, but just so we can get you off the books kind of thing.
The problem is I worked it out. It's something like, I can't remember the exact amount, but it's about 10 million quid or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to do that because it comes off the budgeting. You send him out on loan to the MLS, probably, and you probably pay 25%. You get them to pay 25% because they're not going to be able to pay that much. You probably end up paying about 50 grand of that 70 grand just to get him out the door.
So frustrating. Like, he has a loan opportunity at Fiorentina, and they were like up for signing him, and they've just forget it. Yeah, we've seen him up close. But anyways, we'll forget about Jack Harrison because we've got a shiny new toy. We have got Harry Wilson in the door. It's going to be some fun media stuff. I'm hoping they do something with the Welsh boys or something. There's good opportunity for some crack there. But yeah, that's mine and Jay's reaction to Harry Wilson signing for Leeds. We will be back for Leeds United latest on Friday morning, so stay tuned for that. Also, check out our daily World Cup shows with Chris and the gang as well. If you're watching on live, smash a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel. If you watch this again later as well, get your comments in as well, what you make of the sign-in, and also like the video and get subscribed as well. And we will see you Friday morning. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Jet.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.